Algebra 2 Notes, 8.4, Part 2, Rational Expressions, Multiplying and Dividing. Multiplying rational expressions. Make sure to list any restrictions on x. Again, I'm not going to ask you to list the restrictions on x, but I will go through it if you want to look at it. Alright, so if we want to simplify this, we first need to factor it. Okay, so factor the numerator. Denominator is already one term. Even though there's no parentheses, there is an imaginary parentheses because it is in the denominator. That splits the fraction. Okay, over here, x squared minus 25, we can break that apart. And finally, we can break this one apart. So really, we've got to be strong with factoring to do this section here. So if you need a refresh on factoring, there's lots of Khan Academy lessons that I can direct you to. Alright, so x squared plus x minus 6. So minus 6 would be 3 and 2. And then, since I want it to be a plus 1, the 3 is going to be positive, the 2 is going to be negative. X squared minus 25, we'd have x plus 5 and x minus 5. Difference of squares. And x squared plus 4x plus 3, we break it up x and x. Multiply to be 3 would be 3 and 1. Everything's positive. And if I add 3x plus 1x, then that gets me the 4x. Alright, so from there, remember anything on the top can cancel with anything on the bottom. So anything in the numerator, any factor in the numerator that's the same can cancel with any factor in the denominator. However, we cannot simply just cross off the x squareds from the beginning because it was an addition and a subtraction problem. We have to make it into a multiplication problem. Now it's all being multiplied, and this one's only one term, so it's already ready to go. So once it's into a multiplication problem, we can now simplify. Okay? And again, we talked about yesterday how if you had something like 3 plus 4 over 3, we can't just cross off those 3's. That's not the same answer as 4, right? But if we had 3 times 4 over 3, now we can just cross off those 3's and it is going to be 4. Okay? So 3 plus 4 over 3 does not equal 4, but 3 times 4 over 3 does equal 4. Okay, so it has to be a multiplication problem in order to be able to start simplifying stuff. Alright. Now real quick, I'm just going to address the restrictions on x, and if you want to do that on your assignment, you can. Otherwise, you don't have to. So the restrictions on x would be any number that was in the denominator. So that will make it 0. Any number that will make the denominator 0. So if I have x minus 5, we would set that one equal to 0. We've got this x plus 3 equal to 0 and x plus 1. So our restrictions for this one, x cannot equal 5, negative 3, or negative 1. Okay, but again, I'm not going to focus on that. I just want you to focus on simplifying. So we've got anything in the numerator can simplify with anything in the denominator. So x minus 5's can cancel. X plus 3's can cancel. So we're simply left with x minus 2 times x plus 5 all over x plus 1. Okay? And you can leave your answer like that. You do not need to FOIL the numerator back out. Alright, the second one, I'll get this first part started. It's a little tricky because it's a greatest common factor. We're not going to break it into two binomials. So 2x minus 8, we can pull a 2 out. Alright, why don't you guys see if you can finish up that second problem. So go ahead and pause your video and see if you can finish that. Alright, check your factors. And from there we can start simplifying. Now, there's an x plus 4 in the numerator, and there's 2 of them in the denominator. 3 of them, actually. You cannot get rid of all 3. You can only get rid of the amount that you have the same. So we can only get rid of one of the pairs. We can't get rid of all of the pairs. Okay, and then we have this x minus 4. You can cancel those out. Be careful with your positives and negatives. And it looks like that's it. So let's see what we're left with. So remember, you're going to multiply through the top. So 2 times x plus 1. And technically, when we cross these out, we're still left with 1s. But I don't need to write times 1. If we got rid of everything, though, we would be left with 1. All right, over x plus 4 times x plus 4. And again, you don't need to FOIL these out. The only thing you might do on this one is rewrite that denominator as all squared. Okay, if you wanted to do the restrictions on x, x can't be 4 or negative 4, plus or minus 4. All right, how would we do a division problem? So for division, the first thing you want to do is keep, change, flip. Keep the first fraction, change the sign, flip the second fraction. You might also think of this as multiplying by the reciprocal. So dividing, remember, is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. Now the rest is just the same we did up above. Now, yesterday we talked about if it is not in the right order, like this 2 minus x, go ahead and put it in the right order. So I'm just going to kind of above it write negative x plus 2. And then what we can do if you have a negative leading coefficient, just take out a negative 1. So again, that numerator, since we rewrote it, it's a little bit easier to factor. And again, you're not going to have any other factors with the negative x. So you always want to take out that negative if you have a negative leading coefficient. Okay. All right, x squared plus 2x plus 1, we can break up x plus 1 and x plus 1. Difference of squares over here, x plus 1, x minus 1. And then x and x, multiply to be 10, that has a difference of 3. So we do 1 and 10, or 2 and 5. So which one of those has a difference of 3? 2 and 5, right? We want it to be a plus 3, so we need to make the 5 positive and the 2 negative. All right, from there we can simplify. X minus 2's will cancel, x plus 1's will cancel, and looks like that's it. So we're left with a negative 1 times x minus 1 on the numerator. And the denominator, x plus 1 times x plus 5. So you could leave your answer like that. Another way to write that negative is to pull it out front. Okay. And even one other way is we could distribute that negative 1 through also. So we could have negative x plus 1. So a couple different ways to write your answer, and I will accept all of these, but it could be a problem that's matching, and you'll need to know which one is it the same as. So just be able to rewrite that if you have a negative out front in a couple different ways. All right, why don't you guys pause the video and try the last one. All right, so keep, change, flip. We're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So we need to change the second fraction. And once we factor, it should look something like this. Okay, so if we simplify, the x plus 4's can cancel. We've got an x plus 1 to cancel, x minus 3 to cancel. So the only thing we're left with is 2x over x minus 1. All right. You can go ahead and get started with the assignment.